Before we begin today's story, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the stories we share here go far beyond headlines. They reveal the quiet truths behind the public faces you think you know. Jason Momoa has always been presented as the definition of strength. Towering, fearless, unshakable. The kind of man Hollywood frames as invincible. From the outside, his life looked like an uninterrupted rise, fame, family, fortune, and purpose all moving in perfect alignment. But strength can be misleading. Sometimes it hides fractures instead of preventing them. Behind the muscles, behind the laughter, behind the confidence that filled movie screens around the world, something was quietly breaking. Not in a way that tabloids could capture, and not in a way that fit neatly into scandal. This was not betrayal or controversy. It was something far more unsettling, a realization that crept in slowly and changed everything Jason believed about himself, love, and the life he was living. When he finally acknowledged it, the truth surprised everyone, including himself. This is the story of a man caught between two worlds, discovering that even the strongest foundations can shift beneath your feet. Long before fame reshaped his image, Jason Momoa's life was already divided by contrast. He was born in Honolulu, surrounded by the raw power of nature, volcanic land, endless ocean, and a culture rooted in respect, ancestry, and balance. Hawaii was not just where he came from. It shaped how he understood strength itself. Strength was not dominance, but harmony. Not noise, but presence. His childhood environment emphasized connection to land, to history, to identity. Creativity was woven into daily life. His mother was a photographer, his father a painter. Art was not something you chased. It was something you lived. But that sense of continuity was disrupted early. When his parents separated, Jason was moved thousands of miles away to Norwalk, Iowa. The transition was abrupt and disorienting. The openness of the islands gave way to long winters, quiet streets, and emotional restraint. For a child used to constant movement and sensory intensity, the Midwest felt confining. Yet that confinement taught him something Hawaii never had to: endurance. In Iowa, Jason learned to survive silence, to build discipline, and to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. Norwalk became the place where Jason learned resilience the hard way. Without the ocean as a constant companion, he turned inward. Structure replaced spontaneity. Discipline replaced instinct. Football became his anchor during high school, not as a dream of stardom, but as a way to belong. The field offered rules, purpose, and acceptance. It shaped his physicality, but it also taught him how to endure pressure quietly. Still, beneath that structure, Jason felt divided. Too island for Iowa, too mainland when he returned to Hawaii. That sense of not fully fitting anywhere stayed with him. At the same time, something unexpected pulled at him: acting. He joined the drama program without ambition or expectation. What he found there was release. Acting gave him space to express emotions that didn't fit neatly into sports or masculinity. Confusion, vulnerability, uncertainty, emotions that often had no outlet elsewhere. Those early performances weren't refined, but they were honest. They revealed something instinctive. After graduation, Jason followed his heart rather than a plan. He enrolled in college to study marine biology, not for career strategy, but because the ocean still felt like home. It was continuity in a life that kept shifting. But once again, life redirected him, quietly and unexpectedly. At 19, Jason entered a local modeling competition almost by accident. He didn't see it as destiny. It was curiosity, nothing more. Modeling itself never fulfilled him. He found it hollow, disconnected from anything meaningful. But it opened doors. One of those doors led him back to Hawaii, where he was cast in Baywatch Hawaii. For Jason, this wasn't about fame. It was about alignment. Filming near the ocean restored something he had been missing for years. Still, he remained cautious. He didn't trust the industry, and he didn't surrender himself to it. He treated early roles as stepping stones, not identity. He was still searching for something deeper, a life that reconciled ambition with belonging. That unresolved tension followed him as his career slowly gained momentum. Hollywood recognized his presence before it understood his depth. Early roles leaned heavily on his size and intensity. Jason accepted them out of survival, not ego. He understood patience. That patience paid off when he was cast as Ronan Dex in Stargate Atlantis. The role allowed him to explore emotional restraint, loyalty, and internal conflict. For the first time, audiences saw more than muscle. They saw complexity. Stargate Atlantis marked a turning point. Ronan Dex was not just a warrior. He was wounded, guarded, and deeply loyal. Jason poured his own experiences into the role, displacement, inner tension, and the feeling of existing between worlds. Over multiple seasons, audiences connected with that authenticity. Respect followed. But stability in career did not mean balance in life. As his professional demands increased, his grounding environments became distant. The ocean turned into a place he visited between projects rather than lived beside. Hollywood demanded constant presence, constant availability. Momentum replaced stillness. Then came Game of Thrones. Khal Drogo changed everything. Though the role had limited dialogue, Jason made it unforgettable. Power through restraint, strength through silence. Overnight, he became a global figure. Opportunities multiplied. Expectations followed. He was no longer just an actor navigating roles. He became a symbol, and symbols are rarely allowed to pause. As his public identity solidified, his private one became harder to protect. The quieter values he shared with his family, privacy, presence, simplicity, were increasingly difficult to maintain. He believed he could balance both. He believed love and success could grow together. That belief would soon be tested. When Jason was cast as Aquaman, his life entered overdrive. The role didn't just elevate his career, it redefined how the world saw him. Aquaman became a global phenomenon, and Jason became inseparable from the image of explosive masculinity and boundless energy. Press tour, international travel, non-stop schedules, the pace was relentless. The man who once found peace in the ocean now lived between airports and hotel rooms. Fame amplified everything while quietly eroding the private life he had protected for years. At home, the contrast grew sharper. His partner valued silence, spirituality, and distance from Hollywood noise. She had learned how to refuse the industry long before Jason learned how to survive it. For years, they made it work by shielding their family from exposure. Home was a refuge, not a brand. But Aquaman changed the scale of everything. Jason wasn't just working anymore. He was carrying a machine. Each project led directly into the next. The space between them disappeared. What once felt manageable began to feel incompatible. Not because love faded, but because rhythm did. What made the fracture so painful was the absence of drama. There were no betrayals, no public fights, no defining explosion. Instead, there was distance. Quiet. The slow realization that two people could love each other deeply and still be pulled in opposite directions. Jason later admitted he began to feel like a guest in the life he once fully shared. The strength he projected publicly masked emotional exhaustion. Time became scarce. Presence required intention. And intention required energy he no longer had. Success reshaped him, not in values but in availability. That realization marked the beginning of heartbreak. Not a moment, but an accumulation of truths. Jason hadn't failed. He had changed. And so had the life he was trying to hold together. Their separation stunned the public because it contradicted everything people believed about them. They were seen as grounded, untouchable by Hollywood chaos. But alignment, not image, is what sustains a life. And alignment had quietly disappeared. After the separation became public, Jason withdrew. No public bitterness. No dramatic interviews. Friends described him as reflective, exhausted, and unusually quiet. This wasn't retreat for attention. It was survival. He was confronting a realization he could no longer avoid. The life he built no longer aligned with the foundation it stood on. This was the heartbreak he referenced later. Not that something went wrong, but that something fundamental had changed. Growth demanded honesty. And honesty demanded letting go. In the months that followed, Jason began reshaping his priorities. He spoke about slowing down, about presence, about fatherhood. When he addressed the future, his words were deliberate. He acknowledged choice. Not blame, not regret, acceptance. He could not undo the direction his life had taken, but he could choose how to move forward. That moment reframed everything. Strength was no longer about endurance. It was about clarity. Jason's story challenges the illusion of invincibility. It reminds us that success can quietly reshape the very things we believe it protects. His heartbreak wasn't public spectacle. It was private reckoning. He didn't frame the ending as defeat. He framed it as responsibility. Growth sometimes requires releasing what once defined you. That truth resonated deeply with fans who had long seen him as unbreakable. Vulnerability reframed his strength. It humanized him. This was not the end of love, but the acknowledgement that love alone cannot always bridge diverging paths. Jason Momoa moved forward not untouched by heartbreak, but shaped by it. And that shape, though painful, was honest. So the question remains, was this the end of a love story or the beginning of a more truthful life? Could things have been different, or was stepping away the only way forward? Jason's journey doesn't offer easy answers. It offers reflection. Sometimes strength isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to release. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you value stories that go beyond headlines and into the quiet truths behind public lives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for more. As Jason Momoa moved forward after the separation, something subtle but important changed in how he carried himself. The loud confidence was still there, but it no longer felt performative. It felt tempered, more deliberate. He stopped trying to outrun discomfort and instead learned to sit with it. For years, movement had been his coping mechanism: new projects, new locations, new responsibilities. Stillness had always been optional. Now it became necessary. Friends noticed that Jason spoke less about ambition and more about intention. He became selective, not just with roles but with energy. He no longer measured success by momentum alone. He measured it by alignment. That shift didn't come from defeat. It came from clarity. Losing the life he thought was permanent forced him to examine what truly grounded him, and what he discovered was uncomfortable but honest. Fame had expanded his reach but narrowed his presence. The industry rewarded availability, not balance. And Jason finally acknowledged that no amount of success could compensate for a life lived out of sync with your values. This period also reshaped how Jason viewed masculinity. For years, he had embodied a version of strength defined by endurance, protection, and perseverance. Hold it together, push through, don't stop. But heartbreak challenged that definition. It revealed that emotional honesty required a different kind of courage. Letting go didn't make him weaker. It made him accountable. Jason began speaking more openly about vulnerability, not as confession, but as responsibility. He didn't blame fame. He didn't blame love. He acknowledged complexity. Two people can grow, two people can love, and still arrive at a place where staying becomes dishonest. That realization stripped away illusion. It also freed him. For the first time in years, Jason was no longer trying to be everything at once: the unstoppable star, the perfect partner, the constant presence. He allowed himself to be human. In doing so, he reframed strength not as resistance to change, but as respect for truth. Professionally, Jason's choices began reflecting that internal shift. He gravitated toward projects that carried meaning rather than spectacle, stories rooted in culture, environment, and responsibility. He spoke passionately about protecting the ocean, honoring indigenous voices, and using visibility for impact rather than noise. These weren't rebrands. They were returns. A reconnection with the values shaped in Hawaii long before Hollywood entered the picture. The island spirit he once feared losing was still there, waiting for space. And now, Jason was creating that space intentionally. He wasn't rejecting fame. He was redefining his relationship with it. Fame became a tool, not an identity. That distinction mattered. It allowed him to exist fully within the world he had chosen, without pretending it was the world he had lost. Growth didn't erase grief, but it gave it purpose. What makes Jason Momoa's story resonate is not the separation itself, but the honesty surrounding it. In an industry built on illusion, he refused to manufacture one. He didn't sell a narrative of triumph or tragedy. He acknowledged reality. That restraint spoke louder than any dramatic reveal ever could. Fans didn't see a hero fall. They saw a man adapt. And adaptation, in many ways, is the truest form of survival. Jason didn't walk away from love. He walked toward truth. That distinction is easy to miss, but impossible to ignore once seen. His journey reminds us that life doesn't always break in obvious ways. Sometimes it shifts quietly, asking you to listen instead of react. And those moments, though painful, are often the ones that define who you become next. So when people ask whether this was the end of a love story or the beginning of something new, the answer isn't simple. It's both. Endings carry grief. Beginnings carry responsibility. Jason Momoa's life didn't collapse. It clarified. He emerged not untouched, but aware. Not invincible, but grounded. And perhaps that is the most powerful transformation of all. Strength was never about never breaking. It was about knowing what to release so you don't lose yourself entirely. If this story made you see Jason differently, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe the most powerful stories are the ones hidden beneath public images, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us for more real stories behind the faces you think you know.